So first things first, tap on the screen and it will show you recent photos that you might have took from your shoot, and that should come across all along here. If not, you can click on open from device and that should show all your photos in your photo album. So for me, I want to start with a photo to edit. I'm going to use a base photo, which is this one. And then I'm going to use tools. Now, at the bottom row, you can see looks, tools, and export. I don't want you to use looks because it's basically filters that's already been done for you. I only want you to use things from the tools section. The only way I would know 100% that you are using the tools section is that you naturally have to do screenshots when you're editing from your phone. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to show you how to get that done on your screen. So first of all, I've got an image and you can see there's blocks of black border at the top and the bottom. So I'm going to use the crop tool. So basically I clicked on the tools button and then the crop tool. And I'm just going to crop it to size. You can even adjust the size by pressing the button at the bottom with the squares. But I'm going to keep it at this ratio and then click tick. Then once that's done, I'm going to look at tune image. So tune image is like adjustment tool on Photoshop. So I want you guys to use that to edit. So you got brightness and you just swipe up and down to get these options. If not, you could press the option button at the bottom and you can adjust the saturation. So my aim here is to show a range of images that relates to life during lockdown or the theme of isolation from lockdown. Okay, so I want you guys to, I think everyone in this room should know what their aim is in terms of what the aim of the shoot and what they're going to edit. So for this one, I'm just going to focus on the idea of isolation. Now, everything about this adjustment tools, it either warms up the photo in some form of way, but depending on the tone and how much dark shadows it might be and so forth. So that all is dependent onto the photo, okay? And I want you to explore and experiment ways you can show that. So if I'm looking at isolation as my theme, I'm going to bring the contrast down as low as possible. So for instance, saturation. I don't want to see students bringing their saturation to this high level unless there's a very, very good reason why, because a lot of the time when students do that, it starts to look rather tacky rather than it being a stylized shot. So think about why you're trying to adjust the image in such a saturated tone. So for me, isolation, I think that the tone of colors would look quite lifeless. So I don't want to bring too much warmth to his skin. So that's my aim when contrasting, adding a bit of contrast to the photo. So once I'm happy with that, I click on a tick button. Okay, now that I've got the tick button done, now I want to open tools again, and I want you guys to look at some of the adjustment tools that's shown at the top. You've got details, which makes the photo very sharp. So if his eyes was open, I would add some sharpness to it using the details button. If not, I would probably go to curves tool to look at how I can adjust the overall exposure. It can warm it up. It could have this kind of effect. I'm just going to go in and show you a couple of examples. So it's kind of like filter kind of effect. And you can even go to the circle button at the bottom, and that allows you to adjust the overall RGB techniques on there. You can even bring some of the color tones down. You can move it up. And if you want to explore color in a way that's slightly saturated, this kind of editing is fine. You can do that. But again, try to relate back to why you're trying to show that. What is the meaning of the color of green, for instance? Okay. And then once you're happy with that, you click tick. If not, you click cross. Okay, I want you guys to do screenshots as you're going along with your edit. So that way you're able to show evidence of you editing Snapseed from scratch. Right, so the next part I want to look at is double exposure. And I can add an image in there. So if I select another image like this one to show some kind of the subject looking a little bit losing his sanity. So what I've done, I add image, then I open a tent, and that's like blending options on Photoshop. So I'm just using that to experiment. And I want to, you can even enlarge, make it smaller, and so forth. And if this happens where the side of the image is showing, for instance here, you can use the layer mask tool to remove that. I'm just going to show you how to do that just in case anybody might want to know. So I'm going to click on the ink button. You can even show how much of that picture you want it to show through, and I kind of want it to be in between. I'm gonna come out, and then once I've ticked that, I want to fix this line. So on your top row you've got this undo button and layers as well. So here you can undo something or revert to the original, but I want you guys to view edits. Okay, on your view edits you will see your layers of your process of your editing. You can use this as a way to do your screenshot from there, so it shows you how you build up your photo. If not, you can just carry on doing your screenshot where it shows you using the option tools and things like that. Right, so just to talk about getting rid of that line at the edge. So here I can use the eye tool. The eye tool basically would draw something in red like this. And sometimes you really need it so that you know if you've made you know where you've drawn on, and if you've accidentally made a mistake, you can always remove it. At the bottom here, you've got numbers where it says double exposure 0 to 100. That's basically the opacity of your brush. So if it's at 100, it will draw red. If not, you can turn the eyes off and you can see where you've drawn at, and it starts to show that layer coming through because you're drawing in that layer. But I want to put the eye on so I know what area I want to keep and I don't want to keep. If I make a mistake or I want to remove certain areas, this is like drawing. You will take it down to 0 and you remove any areas that you've accidentally drawn in. And having that red brush really helps you to figure out where those mistakes are quite quickly. You can do it in an inverted way, so by pressing the button next to the cross, so the inverted way, where it's already covered in red, and you just simply use the brush tool from 0 to brush out anything that is not necessarily needed. And you can zoom in to provide more accurate outlines when drawing in certain lines in and so forth. Okay. So you can even take the eye tool off and you can start to draw in any details you want to bring back as well to help elevate the meaning behind your photo and make it more personal. Now for me, I want to make sure I don't brush this side because again, that will just bring back that annoying line that I don't want. So just be a bit more controlled, zoom in if that's what it means to get an accurate line. Okay. And then once you're done, you can just come out from here and just correct anything else that needs correction. And then I'm quite happy with this look so far. You can even bring the red brush tool just to double check if you've made any mistakes in terms of your drawing techniques. So I'm just going to draw that in. I've got a weird brush mark that's sticking out on the side of his hood. So I'm just going to remove that a little bit just to make sure that I refine my edit and making sure that it looks polished, because that is the aim that we're trying to show. Okay. And I quite feel like the line's a little bit harsh around there. So I might bring this back in by adjusting the opacity brush to maybe 50 so that it looks a little bit more blended in. So it can be quite a little bit fiddly, but The whole point of this is kind of like Photoshop. You need to learn these skills so that you can edit more confidently when using this app. So I'm going to come out this and just press tick, and that should fix what I was working on earlier on. And then you can go back by pressing the back button. Now, the next bit is using other tools that you can experiment, for instance, lens blur and the vignette tool. So the lens blur, I don't really have anything to blur out in terms of showing depth of field in the background, but I can add a little bit more blur to the overall picture. I can adjust the shape to be wider or narrow or to, and that would really help if you want to add that kind of depth of field in your overall photo. So you can use that. You can even adjust the transitioning of it so that it looks more seamless in terms of how the blur starts and end. You can even use the vignette tool, so that basically adds darkens the background a little bit. When using the vignette tool, just think about making sure that it doesn't look like too like rounded, like obvious sharp rounded lines on the edges. Try to make it look like it's gradual, so that way it looks more contemporary as a design, okay, or as a photo. So once you're happy with it, you click tick. Okay, so at this point I've shown you a range of tools. So I want you to use tune image. I want you to use the crop tool if you haven't cropped out any images. For instance, if your portrait is too far away, you can crop it in to make it a little bit more closer. You can use, I want you guys to try give double exposure a go and using the lens blur tool. Once you've done all of that, I would like you to have a go in a curves tool where you can experiment with the overall exposure. You can even adjust some of these lines that only enhance certain colors of the photo. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. You can always press undo at the top and you can start again. I just want you guys to get used to using this app today by being able to adjust the overexposure and adding double exposure to your photo.